Dober dan, vam želim sredi afriškega poletja. Smo poskrbeli tudi za to, da dobimo gostjo, ki je nekako iz Afrike. Ampak še lepše je pa to, da jo upeljuje gostja, ki je pa slovensko-američanka. Erica Johnson Debeljak. Lepo pozdravljeni na sredini poletja oziroma na sredini prireditev za Evropsko prestolnico kulture. Naj povem, da je to serija Gostim besedo, ki jo poklanja Mariboru Društvo slovenskih pisateljev. Njena je voditeljica te serije. Kar pozdravimo jo. Sicer pa predajam besedo gospe Debeljakovi in pa gospodu Janku, ki bo povedala.
Dober večer, jaz sem Erica Johnson Debeljak. Pa danes imam velik užitek, da imamo tukaj maroško pisateljico Zineb El Rhazoui. In užitek, da bom govorila angleško danes večer namesto slovensko za spremenbo. Jaz bom govorila angleško z našo gosto, ker je lažje za naju. In on bo prevedel, mene tudi. In sem tudi hotela reči, da Zineb, ki zelo dobro govori angleško, vedno pravi, ne, to je moj tretji jezik, da govori francosko pa arabščino in angleščina je šele tretji jezik, ampak ful dobro govori, res. I thought you were speaking excellent English. Oh, now you don't need to translate.
Povedala je poudarila, da angleščino govori odlično, kar lahko potrdim tudi sam.
Okay, now I'll switch to English. Zineb is a journalist and writer from Morocco. She lived in Casablanca, and she's lived in Slovenia since November 2011. She came here under the program called ICORN, which stands for International Cities of Refuge Network. And it's a network where cities accept writers who have been persecuted or have had problems in their own country and need a place to go. I know of an Albanian writer, for example, who was sheltered in Barcelona. He was the son of I'm so bad with names, a high politician in Albania who was murdered. And he ended up in Barcelona, and he's still there today. He's there for 20 years. But Zineb came in November. She's going to stay in Slovenia for 2 years at least under this program, and she's working and writing here.
Torej pa prejdimo k angleščini. Predstavljam vam Zineb El Rhazoui, novinarko in pisateljico iz Maroka, prihaja iz Casablanke. V Slovenijo pa je prišla v novembru leta 2011 v okviru organizacije ICORN oziroma organizacije mest zatočišč preganjanih pisateljev. Sama tudi poznam enega tovrstnih pisateljev, in sicer Albanca, sina velikega političnega predstavnika iz Albanije, ki so ga ubili. No, ta sin je kot član oziroma kot vključenec v to mrežo mest zatočišč preganjanih pisateljev pristal v Barceloni, kjer danes živi že 20 let. Zineb bo pri nas ostala vsaj 2 leti, torej do leta 2013, in trenutno piše in ustvarja v Ljubljani.
So, I think first I'll just ask Zineb that she tell us something about herself and about the circumstances, what she did in Casablanca, that was the city where she lived, and what happened to her that led her to apply to the network, I guess, and come to Ljubljana.
First of all, thank you for all being here. Thank you, Erika. Thank you, Nina. And I'm very happy to be here today. It's the second time I come to Maribor. I came 3 weeks ago. And thank you to all the Slovenian people to give the opportunity for me and my partner now, because I'm not here alone. I am here with my partner Ali Ammar, who is also a journalist and a writer and an opponent to the Moroccan regime. And after us, the opportunity will be given to other writers, maybe from other countries, to come here just to feel safe again, to have an apartment, a very nice apartment in Ljubljana, and to have a stipend, to have this opportunity to feel living in safety and in dignity again.
Pleasure. You can run as long as you wish.
Oh, really?
Don't worry.
Okay.
No, but just go, you can translate that and I will continue.
No problem at all, ladies. Torej, naj predam besedo kar Zineb, da pove nekaj o sebi. Torej, zakaj se je priključila mreži mest preganjanih pisateljev? Zineb se uvodoma zahvaljuje Eriki, zahvaljuje se njeni in vsem, ki so ji omogočili vključitev in jo spremljajo v bivanju v Sloveniji. Danes se drugič nahaja v Mariboru, ki ga je prvič obiskala pred 3 tedni. Zelo vesela je, da je tukaj tudi svojim partnerjem, novinarjem, ki je bil tudi sam preganjan strani režima, in je zelo vesela za voljo te mreže in srčno upa, da bojo v okviru tega priložnost bivanja v Sloveniji dobili tudi drugi avtori in druge avtorice, da bodo lahko bivali v prijetnem stanovanju v Ljubljani, kot lahko biva sama, in da bodo lahko končno po preganjanju občutili tudi kanček varnosti.
Before coming here, life was like a nightmare for me. I am from Casablanca, the economic capital in Morocco. Actually, the capital is Rabat, but I was in Casablanca, the biggest city, a city of 8 million people, very violent, very polluted, very noisy, but it was my city. And life became a nightmare for me, because you can imagine how can the life of a woman be, a woman who tries to be free and who tries to live with dignity, who tries to say no from one side to the Islamist radical totalitarianism, and from the other side to the dictatorship of the Moroccan regime. Then when you are a woman in a Muslim country, dictatorship, you are a woman, you are an independent journalist, and you are anti-radical Islamism. You can imagine that in a very short time, things become very difficult. You lose your job, you lose the possibility to live with dignity, you lose the possibility even to walk in the streets and to feel safe, and you become persecuted, you become arrested from time to time, you are put under custody from time to time, and you risk going to jail or being attacked every day. I will give details about that later.
Torej, pred prihodom v Slovenijo sem živela v Casablanki, v ekonomski prestolnici Maroka, mestu, ki šteje 8 milijonov prebivalcev. Glavno mesto kraljevine Maroka pa je Rabat. Casablanca je sicer nasilno, onesnaženo in zelo glasno mesto, a je moje mesto. Kljub temu pa je življenje zame postajalo vse bolj neznosno. Zame kot žensko, ki se na eni strani bori z radikalnim islamizmom, z drugi strani pa z monarhističnim režimom, ki radikalni islamizem tolerira. V takem režimu si ženska, si novinarka in uprta zoper islamiste. Kaj te čaka? Ves čas si v nevarnosti, ves čas ti preti pregon in vsake toliko časa ti grozi tudi aretacija, kar se je zgodilo tudi meni.
Zineb founded an organization called Mali, which stands for Alternative, you tell me again.
Mali is in French Mouvement Alternatif pour les Libertés Individuelles.
So Alternative Movement for Individual Liberties.
And Mali in Moroccan Arabic means Mali, it's a question, it means what's wrong with me.
So I guess this was an organization aimed at, in some ways, provoking the government, and also, but their goal is also, you're very interested in women's rights, but also the rights of people who are not necessarily religious too. Her first action was, why don't you tell about the first action about Ramadan?
Mali?
May I translate the introduction as to, for our audience to understand where we are going?
Okay.
Thank you. Torej Zineb je ustanovila tudi organizacijo Mali, ki v francoščini pomeni, what does it stand for, Mali?
Alternative movements for individual rights, or liberties.
Torej gre za organizacijo, ki se osredotoča na reevangelizacijo evangelskih gibanj s poudarkom.
Not evangelski, individual, samostojni.
I'm very, very sorry.
Yeah, that would be different.
Torej gibanje za individualizacijo gibanj.
Liberties. Svobode.
I have, moramo pozoriti, zamenjal sem dve organizacije, ena je Mali, drugo pa je Malibu reevangelizacija, se globoko prevečujem, ki je bila ustanovljena kot provokacija, kot zoprstavitev režimu, na eni strani za vse verne, na drugi strani pa predvsem za ljudi, ki počasi okušajo, kaj so to človekove pravice, predvsem pa si jih želijo dejansko tudi živeti.
Before to speak about Mali, I have to say that in Morocco, Islam is the religion of state. You don't have the choice to believe or not to believe, to be Muslim or not. You're born in a religious community. There is only two official religious communities. If you are not Jewish, you are considered automatically as a Muslim. So your personal life is ruled by Islam. You have to act as a Muslim, to marry as a Muslim, to divorce as a Muslim, to inherit as a Muslim, either you believe or not. So we have certain laws. For example, sexual relations are forbidden if you are not married. And if you do it, you go to jail. For example, in Ramadan, you are obliged to fast. And if you eat or drink, drink water, publicly, you go to jail. Homosexuality, any homosexual behavior, you are jailed 3 years. And if you are a woman, you inherit only half of what a man inherits. Either your father and mother want it or no, they are obliged. Anyway, we founded this Mali movement to protest against these laws. And we know that there is no freedom of association in our country because there is no political freedom. So we knew that our movement will be banned, so we created it as an alternative movement on internet. And it was in September 2009, and it was Ramadan, just like now. Ramadan will start this week in the Muslim world. So we decided that our first action will be to organize a public picnic during Ramadan, just to say that there is some people who don't fast and who protest against the law punishing those who don't fast. So we did it, and of course, we were all arrested. There was a fatwa against us from the religious official council, and I will not give the detail because it's so long, but that was our first action.
Torej, v Maroku je islam državna religija, absolutna religija, in v Maroku si rojen kot pripadnik islama. Priznani sta sicer dve verski skupnosti, in sicer islam in judovstvo. Kolikor nisi jud, si pa absolutno musliman, če tudi morda nisi že sprejel zakramentov ali tvoji starši niso vidno verni. V Maroku si torej rojen, voden in pogojen kot musliman. Nekatera pravila te vere so, da je spolnost izven poroke kazniva, da se v času Ramadana, torej posta, od sončnega vzhoda pa do sončnega zahoda, ne sme v času dneva piti na javnem mestu niti vode. Kot ženska lahko deduješ največ polovico. Gibanje Mali je v soju tega provokacija zoper tem rigidnim pravilom vere in rigidnim pravilom, ki jih podpira kraljeva monarhija. Kot tako pa je delujoče in nepreganjano zgolj na spletu. Naš protest v okviru gibanja Mali pa je bil kot sledi. Leta 2011 smo v času Ramadana organizirali javni piknik, torej čez dan, ko je uživanje hrane in pijače v javnosti strogo prepovedano. To je bil naš protest. Vsekakor si lahko mislite, da smo bili za voljo tega aretirani in zoper nas je bila razpisana tudi fatva. O podrobnostih le-te tukaj ne bi govorila, zaradi tega, ker so bile obtožbe zoper nas farsa in razlogi za to, da je bila razglašena nad nami, so tudi z mojega vidika povsem nesmiselni.
So let's maybe briefly depart from and talk about your arrival in Slovenia. I never know, I can't tell whether it's Slovenian or English, okay. I think I was invited to, it's funny, I think I was invited to host this because we have a little bit in common, in that we're two foreign women, writers now, who came to Slovenia. But other than that, really, we have very little in common, as we discussed. I came to Slovenia 20 years ago in a very different, when Slovenia was very, very different. And I came as I used to call myself, almost jokingly, a voluntary exile. I came because I wanted to. But I came in the opposite direction of most exiles. Most movement. Most movement goes into America or into the West, and not the other way. And I always found that a strange difference. But in a way, we thought that these kind of forced exiles were over after World War II and the Soviet Union collapsed. But as you can see, there are still individuals around that are forced to leave their countries under unfavorable circumstances and maybe never come back, which is quite tragic. So I don't know, why didn't you want to talk about how you have experienced your life in Slovenia and what you do and how you look, maybe how you contemplate your future? Yeah. Do you want to turn this off?
It would be my pleasure.
Okay.
Torej, nakratko pa pridimo od prvotne teme in se preselimo k temi, ki je povezana z Zineb in njenim prihodom v Slovenijo. Sama sem bila verjetno povabljena kot gostiteljica, ker podobno kot Zineb prihajam od drugod. Sama prihajam iz tujine, iz ZDA, odkudar sem prišla pred 20 leti, moja pot pa je bila drugačna in tudi tukaj se na ene stične točke pričnejo raziti. Ko sem jaz prišla iz Združenih držav Amerike in še kasneje, je vse splošno na nek način morebiti v misli vseh in v umevanju vseh veljalo prepričanje, da so prisiljeni eksili, prisiljeno izseljenost ljudi vseh vrst, tudi umetnikov, na nek način izumrli, torej po drugi svetovni vojni, da tega več ni bilo. Spriča pa smo, predvsem na primeru Zineb, da temu danes še zdaleč ni tako in da so tudi ti mladi avtori iz sveta podobnega svetu, z katerega prihaja Zineb, zoperstavljeni tudi nevarnosti, da se morda v svoj dom, v svoje domače okolje, kulturno, kot pogojujoče njih v vseh pogledih, morebiti več sploh ne bi mogli odbiti.
After this this picnic story, the persecution continued, either for me or for my partner for other reasons, because my partner published 2 books very critical about the Moroccan regime. 2 books were banned in Morocco, were published in France, and he was the founder of the first independent magazine in Morocco. I was working in this magazine, and it was closed in January 2010. I was arrested a second time, the 2nd May 2010, because Mali organized an event against sexual harassment in the streets. So I was arrested with another girl and one photographer who was just working here, and she was arrested too. And we were released after that. I was arrested a 3rd time, the 4th June 2010, The policemen came to my apartment in Casablanca, they broke the door, they arrested me for prostitution because I was with my partner in the same apartment and we are not married. And they arrested him for stealing his own computer. And he had the invoice and everything, but he was charged for that, 3 months for that. After that, life really became impossible. We started to look for a solution because we had all those political problems, but also economic problems. I mean, when you wake up in the morning and you don't know if you are going to have dinner tonight or not, if when you arrive to, when you don't pay the electricity and when you stay in the dark during weeks, I mean, life wasn't possible. We started to understand that we have to go, to leave the country for a while, and we applied to that program, ICORN, but we didn't know in which country we are going to land. There is 42 cities around the world in this program, and at this time, Ljubljana didn't join the program yet.
Oh yes, Ljubljana is a new member.
Yeah, it's the first year. Maybe shall I let you translate this and continue after, because it's too long?
As you wish. Torej, po prej že omenjenem pikniku v času Ramadana se je pregon nenehno nadaljeval zoper mene in tudi zoper mojega partnerja, ki je v tem času tudi napisal 2 knjigi, ki sta bili v Maroku prepovedani in kasneje izdani in objavljeni v Franciji. Moj partner je bil tudi ustanovitelj neodvisne revije. The Independent Journal was named Charlie Hebdo?
No, Le Journal Hebdo.
Hebdo.
Omenjene revije, ki jo je režim leta 2010 zaprl pod precej nenavadno in namišljeno pretvezo. Drugič je bila aretirana 2. maja 2010, tokrat v okviru demonstracije zoper spolno nadlegovanje žensk. Tretja aretacija je sledila 3. junija 2010, tedaj pa je bila aretirana pod obtožbami prostitucije in sicer v stanovanju je bila skupaj s svojim partnerjem, s katerim pa ni poročena in je bila zaradi tega obtožena prostitucije. Njega pa so aretirali pod obtožbo, da naj bi ukradel lasten računalnik, za katerega je imel račun. Tedaj sta ugotovila, da je beg iz države neizbežen in nujen, ne samo zaradi nenehnega preganjanja in nenehne more, kakšno je življenje postalo, predvsem pa zaradi ekonomskih razlogov. Nista imela nobenih sredstev, plačevanje računov je postalo nemogoče, nista mogla dejansko niti plačevati računov za vodo, kaj šele kupovati hrano. Tukaj ima je res postalo jasno, da morate zapustiti državo in za voljo tega sta se prijavila in priključila organizaciji ICORN. Organizacija ICORN je ob njuni prijavi štela 32 držav, danes jih šteje nekoliko več. V tistem času pa Slovenija še ni bila priključena mreži mest zatočišč preganjenih pisateljev, tako da v bistvu na začetku nista vedela, kje bosta pristala.
And at this time, one lady helped me a lot. Her name is Belgi Ahmetai. She's Albanian, but she lives in Brussels. And she is the historical assistant of the famous Egyptian lady Nawal Saadawi, who was persecuted a lot by the Muslim Brotherhood. So she knows how to deal with these issues of persecuted writers. She told me, she helped me applying to ICORN. And I remember at this time, Ljubljana wasn't still in the list. And I was with Ali, my partner, just asking ourselves, do you prefer Italy or Norway? And he was telling me, I can go even to Congo, but we have to leave the country. And I remember one day I answered the phone, this phone call in my apartment in Casablanca. I was still in Casablanca at this time, totally hopeless. And someone called and says, Ljubljana takes you. And after that, I said, Slovenia, Slovakia. I didn't know exactly where it was. You know, it's so far and so exotic for us. So we started looking on the internet, and I read, for example, that in Slovenia it is so safe that women can walk alone on the streets, even in the night, even in the woods. And it was so fantastic for me. I read that you can meet a bear,
but not an Islamist.
Yeah, but not an Islamist and not someone from the regime. And so we were very happy to come and to discover, but I recognized that even if I read that and I was very enthusiastic, but we as Africans, as people from Orient, you know, we had certain cliches. For us, you know, Slovenian people are people from the north, Nordic people, so I was imagining that maybe they have, you know, this very strict behavior like the Russians or Polish people, but I was totally mistaken, I mean. And when we came here, we discovered that the people are very nice, maybe very, I don't find the word in English,
Reserved.
But really, really nice and really, really friendly, really curious about the others, and not as Nordic as we could imagine.
Ob prijavi mrežo ICOR mi je pomagala gospa Belgi Ahmetaj, ki je Albanka in živi v Bruslju, sama pa je pomočnica Naval El Sadawi, egipčanske pisateljice, ki jo je preganjala sama islamska bratovščina, zato je natančno vedela, za kakšno situacijo gre. Pomagala mi je pri prijavi in ko sva s partnerjem Alijem gledala, kam bi šla, sva si ogledovala možnosti, padla je tudi Italija, in ko sem ga vprašala, če ima kakršnekoli preference, kakršnekoli želje, kam bi šel, je rekel, da bi sam z veseljem šel tudi v Kongo. Potem sem prijela klic v Casablanco in ta klic me je osrečil z novico, da sem sprejeta v Ljubljano. Torej, ob tej novici je bilo treba preveriti, pregledati Ljubljana, kaj to je. Spet vprašanje Slovenija, Slovaška, sploh ciljam v pravo smer. In ti dve državi, katerakoli je že ta, ki ima Ljubljano kot glavno mesto, pa sta tako daleč in zvenita tako eksotično. Pogledala sva na spletu in poiskala nekaj podatkov in informacij v Sloveniji in ugotovila, da ženske lahko brez težav same hodijo po cesti, brez spremstva naokrog, tudi po gozdu. Edina mogoče majhna nevarnost je, da lahko kdaj pa kdaj srečajo tudi medveda. V kratkem, zelo sva bila srečna, da sva bila izbrana in da lahko greva tja. Sama kot orientalka, kot severna Afričanka, sem v glavi se kljub temu poigravala z nekaterimi stereotipi, z klišej o severnjakih, ki sem jih tedaj pripisovala Slovencem. Tukaj pa gre za rigiden, strog značaj tamkajšnjih ljudi. Predstavljala sva si, da tukaj gre za zelo stroge, klene ljudi, kot so na primer Rusi in Poljaki. Po prihodu v Slovenijo pa sva ugotovila, da so to zelo srčni, prijazni ljudje, nekoliko zadržani, kljub temu prijazni in precej radovezni, veliko jih zanima in veliko povprašujejo. Tukaj sva ugotovila, da niso niti približno nordijski, kot se nam je mora biti zdelo na začetku.
Another interesting fact about Zineb's biography or autobiography that we haven't mentioned is that her mother is French and her father is Moroccan. So she grew up in a family that was bilingual, French and Arabic. And many of her journalistic work, much of her journalistic work, and she has short stories, are published in France. And she writes it mostly in French. Although we also talked about how she sometimes would like to write a book that is both in French and Arabic, because some things can be said more perfectly in one language and it should in a way be combined. A similar problem that I said I sometimes have with words that I've come to love in Slovenian and to mean something special that you can't express in the other language. So Zineb writes mostly, I think mostly really, she's working here mostly for the French, as a journalist for French newspapers. And she continues to write about the situation in Morocco. Another interesting and kind of sad thing was mentioned when we first had a coffee together was that she said she knew a man in, was it Switzerland? A Moroccan dissident who'd been living in Switzerland for several decades. And he lived as if he lived in a bubble. Still, though he'd lived in Switzerland for 20 years, his whole life was Morocco, and everything he wrote about was Morocco. And I said, that's a rather sad existence. So I think that's a challenge for people who leave a country under the conditions that you left under, to find a way to, I don't know, to also to be at home where you go, and not just live in a bubble for the other country. Maybe Zineb will have the opportunity to live in France, which will be which will be kind of closer to your community. But do you want to talk about your writing and where you publish?
Oh, do you want to translate first?
Yeah.
Torej, še ena zanimivost o Zineb je, da je mati Francozinja, oče pa je Maročan, tako da je odraščala v dvojezični družini. Svoje kratke zgodbe piše v francoščini.
Kratke zgodbe tudi. You write also short stories in French, not in Arabic.
I write, for the moment, I only wrote articles in Arabic, but I would like to write in Arabic, but it's complicated to publish.
We'll talk about that in a moment. That's so interesting. Go ahead.
Torej, svoje kratke zgodbe piše v francoščini in večino piše v francoščini, a članki so v arabščini, rada bi pa ustvarjala tudi literaturo, književnost v arabskem jeziku. Ta želja pa sklije iz tega, da bi rada v tem jeziku več izrazila, več izpovedala, saj pisanje v enem jeziku na nek način to omogoča. Kakorkoli je določena čustva, lahko opišemo, obelodanimo, morebiti na podlagi kakšnega drugega jezika. Trenutno piše za francoske časnike. Kot disidentka pripovedovala pa mi je nekoliko žalostno zgodbo. In sicer o maroškem disidentu, ki sicer že 20 let živi v Švici, vendar je tako zamaročanjen in živi v tem maroškem kalupu, da je to na nek način še zmeraj tematika njegovega pisanja, da piše samo o tem in na tak način, da je res, da živi druge, vendar je ostal zakoreninjen zgolj v tisti rigidni okvir, z katerega je prišel.
You know, as a writer, and I don't know if you share the same feeling as a foreign writer, even if you are here since a long time, it's a challenge to continue writing in your language when you are in a foreign country, because I always feel that I need my language. I need to hear it every day in the streets. Either Arabic or French. For French it's easier. I know a lot of Slovenian people who speak French, but Arabic, actually I only know one person who is learning Arabic, and usually if Slovenians know an Arabic word, it's only bad words. So it's not easy, and it's also difficult when you are a journalist. And when you write, when you are a dissident journalist, and most of the independent Moroccan journalists now are abroad, either in Slovenia, in France, in Switzerland, or in America, or in Spain. So you have to know every day what's happening. So you have to call a lot, to spend hours on Skype, etc. It's not easy. And this is a challenge for me to continue writing in my language and to continue to have these feelings. I need that to write, I need to be surrounded by violence. I don't know why. And many people told me many times that there is a lot of violence in what I write. And I need this violence to write. And here in Slovenia, I cannot say that I am in a violent environment. I am really... this was my first impression when I came. It was an impression of peace, and I had to learn the first days that no one will come to my apartment, no one is following me in the streets, and that I don't have to fight for everything. Even I told you, for example, when you have to cross the road, in my country you have to fight even to cross the road because there is no law. So you have to be the faster one and the fastest one. But here in Slovenia you have, when the little man is red, you don't cross even if there is no one. You have to wait, and it was so difficult to understand for me at the beginning. And also a lot of other things that were very new and that I had to get used to. So, for example, when I went to Paris a few weeks ago, I waited. I didn't cross, even if the French people crossed. I waited, and I felt so civilized and so polite to do that. But for my writing, I have this challenge to continue writing even without violence. And the second challenge is I want to write something about this country. But I'm waiting for this moment where I am going to feel something strong and something sincere enough to be able to write something about this country. For the moment, I mainly write journalism. I work with Charlie Hebdo, a satirical weekly newspaper in France. I write in my blog. From time to time, I write in some writing sites, and I work on my books also.
Težko je, če si novinar in se ukvarjaš z novinarstvom drugače, posebej, če si disident iz Maroka in kot novinar, ki želiš opozarjati na muke in vse preizkušnje, ki jih morajo tvoji sodržavljani dati skozi, moraš nenehno ostati z njimi v stiku, s kulturo, z ljudmi od doma, z dogajanjem od doma. Tako veliko časa preživim preko Skypa oziroma na Skypu. Vendar, da pišem o tem in da pišem o stvareh, zato je moja spodbuda nasilje. Ne vem sicer zakaj, kot da bi ga potrebovala kot neke vrste motivacijo, kot motivacijo za budnost in nekaj, kar mi pomaga ohraniti stik. V Sloveniji je to težko, tukaj namreč nisem preganjana. Pri nas v Maroku, na primer, ko se je preganjanje ves čas dogajalo, se moraš boriti tudi, da lahko živ prideš čez cesto. V Sloveniji, na primer, imaš rdečega možiclja, zelenega možiclja in ta ti povesta, kdaj stoj in kdaj hodi čez cesto. Pred kratkim sem obiskala Pariz in tam ljudje, kar tebi nič, meni nič, gredo čez cesto, ne glede na to, kakšne barve je tisti možicel. Sama pa nisem šla čez cesto kar tako, tam, kjer ni bilo prehoda za pešce in sem se zavoljo tega počutila prav civilizirano. Tukaj v Sloveniji pa se soočam z dvema izzivoma. Prvi izziv je pisanje brez nasilja, brez da bi bilo nasilje moja motivacija. Drugi izziv pa je pisanje o tej državi, o državi, v kateri trenutno bivam. Čakam na nekaj iskrenega, kar bi bilo neka vrste moja muza, kar bi mi pokazalo pot in kar bi mi pokazalo tematiko. Trenutno se ukvarjam predvsem z novinarstvom, pišem podlistke za revijo Življenje Hebdo, za satirično revijo Življenje Hebdo, osredotočam pa se tudi na svoje literarno ustvarjanje.
I think now would be a good moment for you to read, perhaps. But before I forget, Zineb's going to read a little bit in French. And you have the story translated into Slovenian in this paper. But I wanted to mention one other thing that I thought of when you were speaking. Because we were talking about language, that you need to hear the Arab language around you. And there's another writer in Slovenia living in exile, not your kind of exile, from Great Britain, who also married a Slovenian woman. And he writes biography, for example, of John Donne from the 16th or 17th century. And he was finishing this biography. I asked him how it was going, and he said, I have difficulty because if I'm in London walking the streets, I see the buildings as they are, as I would describe them, and the mood as I would put it into this book. But here, it's different. And I can't just casually, as I walk through the street, collect these impressions and feelings, and even on the visual level. So that's also a difficulty if you're in one place and writing about another place. You could translate that, and then do you want to read a bit?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Do you want to say what it's about before you read it? Do you want to say a little bit, give a little introduction?
Yeah.
Okay, but first you.
With pleasure. One short question, is there a mail or a
Mail.
Torej, Zineb nam bo v kratkem prebrala prispevek v francoščini. Prej pa je, kot je že omenila, mora za pisanje v določenem jeziku ta jezik slišati tudi na cesti, obdajati jo mora tudi od zunaj. Primer pisatelja, ki živi tudi v Sloveniji, je iz Anglije, ta pa je za svoje ustvarjanje povedal, da potrebuje druge stimule, vizualne stimule, v tem primeru stavbe in zgradbe, ki ga obdajajo kot motivacijo, kot vodilo, kot muze na nek način.
Vzdušje, označje. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going just to read a short part of it because it's in French, and I don't know if someone understands French here. It's just to hear the language and the rhythm. And it's called Ahmed, le businessman. Businessman, in Moroccan Arabic, they say business, and businessman means drug dealer. So the story is about a drug dealer, and it's very political, but also what you don't see in this translation, it is only the beginning of it, but the end of it is a bit erotic. It's, yeah. So, Ahmed le businessman. À Rabat, Taqaddoum a la réputation d'être un quartier de businessmen. On est pourtant loin des gratte-ciels de Wall Street ou de Shinjuku. Ici, les maisons dépassent rarement les 4 étages et seuls quelques axes tracent un semblant d'urbanisme. Ni assez moderne pour attirer les hommes d'affaires, ni assez pittoresque pour figurer dans les guides touristiques. Le quartier est celui des gens ordinaires, ouvriers, petits fonctionnaires, artistes, commerçants, chômeurs, soldats, artisans. Tous les matins, des autobus bondés quittent Taqaddoum pour décharger leur cargaison humaine dans les pôles administratifs, industriels ou commerciaux de la ville. À la même heure, des essaims de femmes en djellaba, foulard noué sur la tête et porte-monnaie à la main, pressent le pas pour traverser la route qui sépare Taqaddoum de Souissi, le quartier huppé où habitent les puissants du pays. Cuisinières, nounous ou femmes de ménage chez les riches, elles doivent s'activer pour servir le petit déjeuner à des gens importants. Elles côtoient le faste le plus opulent la journée pour rentrer à Taqaddoum au crépuscule, en pressant le pas pour aller servir à leur famille les restes du dîner qu'elles emportent dans leurs sacs en plastique. Au sud, à la lisière du quartier de Souissi, l'ancien Taqaddoum qui fleure bon les années 60 ressemble à toutes ces médinas post-indépendance, ces villes nouvelles autochtones où une architecture pittoresque s'est adaptée aux besoins de circulation des voitures. Derrière des façades potemkines de maisons jaunâtres ou roses baba-papa diluées à la chaux, se cache un enchevêtrement de blocs de ciment couleur poussière. Plus au fond, un coulis de taudis en briques se déverse sur le fleuve Bourré-Grec qui délimite le quartier au nord. Là, tout ornement de façade est superflu. Une jungle urbaine où seule la prédation de l'espace façonne les constructions. Dans cette excroissance mutante du vieux quartier, de 20 ans son aîné, c'est toute la laideur des années 80 qui défigure le flanc de la vallée du fleuve. Taqaddoum, progrès en arabe, est l'avatar dégénéré d'une modernité mal digérée. En 20 ans seulement, les arbres ont disparu, les avenues ont rétréci, et des ersatz de matériaux de construction ont fait leur apparition. Explosion démographique, corruption, exode rural, l'absence de politique sociale de Hassan II avait déjà déclenché la bombe à retardement 20 ans auparavant. Aujourd'hui, c'est le système de l'informel, c'est le règne de l'informel, de l'esbrouf et du système D. Un abysse sépare l'État des damnés de cette zone. Pas de bâtiments administratifs, ni de signalisation routière, ni même de panneaux publicitaires. Ici, dans des bicoques peintes en vert, des pharmaciennes voilées vendent la pilule contraceptive sous le manteau. Et des cybercafés d'étage autorisent des gamins à se masturber en groupe devant du porno américain. C'est que businessman, Bezna Sandarija, veut dire dealer. Voilà.
Is your accent in France? Do they know you're not from France?
It depends, because I came to realize that when I speak French with a Moroccan or Algerian person, I speak a specific French from North Africa. But when I'm in Paris and I speak in French, I speak like French.
And they might not know that you are not from...
They might know, but my name is Zineb.
Oh, that's true.
Not Françoise.
You should catch up.
Nazaj k prejšnji zgodbi, torej naslov zgodbe je podjetnik Ahmed, oziroma Ahmed je biznisman. Tukaj pa gre kot business, je pa izraz, ki v maroščini v slengu pomeni razpečevalec mamile, razpečevalec drog. Gre, oziroma šlo je za zgodbo z političnim pridihom in pa recimo bogobog s nekoliko erotičnim koncem. Sledilo vprašanje, ali v Franciji vedo, da Zineb, ko govori francosko, ni francozin. Sama je dodala, da je odvisno od tega, kadar francoščino govori s francozom, in sicer kadar ni v Franciji, govori z severnoafriškim akcentom, naglasom, ko pa se nahaja v Franciji, pa francosko govori kot francozinja, tako da je, kar se tiče tega, verjetno ne bi razlikovali. To, kar pa jo dela edinstveno, je pa njeno ime Zineb.
In the car we were talking about the languages in Morocco. So, there's French, which was the colonial language that the elite speaks. Then, I guess in school, they learn classical Arabic, which is the Arabic of the Middle East, I'll say. And then they speak Moroccan Arabic, for which, I find this amazing, there is no really written equivalent. So if people say something, there's even a sound, she said, that's in, for which there's no letter. And so they can't really write in the same language that they kind of casually speak on the street. And she said something that was interesting, that reminded me of Yugoslavia. So if a Moroccan goes to Egypt, elsewhere, they understand, because they studied what would be the equivalent of Serbo-Croatian. But if an Egyptian comes to Morocco, he doesn't understand, so they understand the broader classical Arabic that they learned in school, but they have a very specific dialect that other people in the Arab world would not understand.
Torej, preden sva prispeli sem, sva se v avtomobilu pogovarjala o jezikih v Maroku. In sicer v Maroku poznajo 3 jezike in se učijo 3 jezike. Prvi je francoščina, jezik elite, drugi je klasična arabščina Srednjega vzhoda, tretji pa je maroška arabščina, ki je zelo, zelo zanimiv jezik, zajema namreč glasove, za katere ni znakov, sploh ni črk. Ena od zanimivosti je, naprimer, ki me je spomnila na Jugoslavijo, da če, naprimer, Maročan potuje v Egipt, razume, kaj govorijo tam, razume arabščino Egipta. Če pa, naprimer, Egipčan potuje v Maroko, pa slednji arabščine Maroka ne razume.
So, do you want to tell us what your plans are for the future, and maybe also a little bit what your hope is for your own country as you look forward?
I just want to say something very important. I hope that the fact of being here, talking to you today, will help to get rid of two cliches about my country. The first cliche that a lot of people have in Europe is that Morocco is a different Arab country. It is a country where you have moderate Islam. Personally, I don't know what is moderate Islam. Does it mean the Muslims who don't kill? I mean, moderate Islam is the spiritual Islam that people choose for themselves. Once the state obliges you, it is not moderate. Then there is this cliche, and you know Morocco is a very touristic country. Marrakesh, the Riyadh, the palace, it's the Orient that people dream. And this Morocco exists, but the reality of Moroccans is not that. We live in a dictatorship. We don't have a nice king as the mediatic propaganda describes him. This is the first cliche. I want people here to understand that in my country, even if it does not have the same face as Libya or Syria, we have a dictatorship. They still rape people in jails, they still torture, they still jail you, even if they don't have the right to do. It's a country where the human rights are not respected, or where the rights of women are not respected. And the other cliche that I would like to help to get rid of it is this cliche about the Muslim world. In every country of North Africa, I know there is a lot of people like me, and actually the Islamist danger, we are the first people who face it, because we live in the same country and sometimes in the same house with those people. It can be the brother, it can be the cousin, it can be the neighbor. And there is a lot of people like me who are secular, who fight for their freedom, who just are like you and me. They are people who want dignity and who want to live normally. Sometimes they can be believers, they can even define themselves as Muslims, but they don't want the Islam to rule the state, and they just want a society where you have a bar, a church, and a mosque. So those people, I think that the Europeans must give them the hand of help and understand that if someone is going to stand really against radicalism, it is the people who are there who are also Muslims. I'm not a believer, I am actually atheist, but I belong to this Muslim culture, and I think that people who are like me, who know this religion, who knows the people, are the first who can stand against them, and we need help. That's it.
Torej, Zineb, mogoče nekaj o tvojih načrtih za prihodnost, nekaj želja za Maroko v prihodnosti. In Zineb nadaljuje s tem in poudarja, da je pomembno, da je danes tu, da lahko dobi priložnost, da lahko črta in izniči nekaj stereotipov, nekaj klišev, ki mora biti v vzhodnem svetu, nearabskem svetu, veljajo za Maroko v očeh prebivalcev. In sicer Maroko ni drugačna država, ni drugačna arabska država z nekoliko omejenim islamom, tako imenovanim islamom light. Islam si vsak izbere sam in kako bo živel v islamski kulturi prav tako. Ukolikor ti režim, ukolikor ti kraljevina usiljuje islam, po katerem bi moral živeti, se tukaj s svoboščinami že konča. In tukaj možnosti lastne izbire, te moderatnosti več ni. Drugič, Stereotip oziroma pojava Maroka v tujini je tudi takšna, da gre tukaj za turistično državo, za sanski orient, da, za turiste. Vendar tukaj še zmeraj vlada kraljevina, ki podpira islamiste, kraljevina, ki je prav malo mar za človekove pravice, kraljevina, ki domačinom predstavlja absolutno diktaturo. Kraljevina, ki v bistvu si zapira oči, če slučajno ni tista, ki naroča mučenje, kratenje človekovih pravic vseh ljudi, predvsem žensk. Ničesar, kar poznamo mi z vidika človekovih pravic in temeljnih svoboščin, se v Maroku ne spoštuje. In pa še tretji klišej oziroma tretji stereotip, ki bi mu rada danes rekla adijo oziroma ga črtala iz vaše predstave, je pa ta, da v Maroku živi veliko ljudi, kot sem jaz. In ravno mi smo tisti, ki smo v največji nevarnosti pred islamizmom. Mi kot sekularni, mi kot tisti, ki smo rojeni v kulturi islama, si želimo tukaj ustvariti svoj svet. Jaz, na primer, sem ateistka in si želim zgolj svobode izbire in nečesa, kar me ne bi omejevalo, nečesa, kar ne bi kratilo mojega življenja in mojega vsakdana. V tej kulturi Maroka so islamizmu, so v nevarnosti pred islamizmom, pa tudi ljudje v lastni družini. Naprimer, da so očetje, sinovi in hčere na različnih polih in nekdo, ki je ortodoksnejši islamist, poskuša drugega zatirati. Tukaj pa sleherno sobivanje nima več nič z dostojanstvom, dostojanstvo pa je nekaj, za čemer jaz stremim. Stremim za ničim več, kot je le kultura, za oštarijo, cerkvijo in mošejo. Želimo opozarjati, da smo pripadniki islamske kulture tudi neverni in želim izpostaviti tudi to, da takšni, kot sem jaz, ki stremimo za dostojanstvom in za človekove pravice in temeljne svoboščine, potrebujemo pomoč.